we were all pretty much on the same page.
Jurors speaking to WFAA Friday after convicting Ortiz on 5 counts of tampering with the consumer product.
I don't get it. Why didn't she say something if she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form? There was no communication.
Okay. I just signed your death warrant.
You are hereby sentenced to New Jersey State Prison to 2 consecutive life sentences.
This is Stephen Matthew, a medical doctor, charged with multiple counts of drugging and sexual assault in Denver, Colorado. Between 2019 and 2023, Matthew used dating apps to meet women. He allegedly drugged their drinks at his home, causing blackouts, disorientation, or severe sickness. At least 13 women later accused him of sexually assaulting them. As police dug more and more into this case, more survivors emerged, and they shared strikingly similar stories that revealed a chilling pattern.
You know, we basically have put together a group of survivors that want to see some change here, that want to make sure that something like this can't happen moving forward.
His victims not only suffered assault, but also psychological manipulation. Matthew reportedly tried to shift blame onto them, questioning their memory or accusing them of excessive drinking. And as public reports grew, so did the number of women stepping forward, emboldened by one another and driven by the hope of justice. Finally, police arrested Matthew during a court hearing and detained him.
Matthews was talking to family members just ahead of a procedural hearing Monday morning when Denver police arrived, cuffed him, and took him to jail. His lawyer is Douglas Cohen.
And they had him arrested right in the hallway, and that really was not necessary for public safety or any reason other than to create a public spectacle.
Police executed a search warrant on Matthew's residence, gathering crucial evidence for the challenge of prosecuting a case involving date rape, a crime often difficult to prove due to victims' impaired memories.
It's something that capitalizes on a person's shame and embarrassment about it. Plus, it's really hard to detect. It's hard to prove. And somebody doesn't just do it once, right? Once you get away with it once, nobody calls you on it. You're not getting a phone call later on. So then you just do it again, and you do it again.
Among the survivors was Allie, and her story she told was simply terrifying.
The incident was the scariest day of my life. That is the only time that I thought I might die.
Eventually, justice caught up. On March 4th, 2024, Matthew was in court, finally brought before the law to pay for his crimes. He was found guilty on 35 of 38 charges related to drugging and assault. The courtroom atmosphere was heavy as the judge read the verdicts.
Guilty of choose only one. It is sexual assault incapable of appraising nature of conduct.
On hearing the verdict, Matthew broke down in tears.
Jury verdict, count 5. Assault incapable of appraising nature of conduct. It is Roman numeral 2. We, the jury, find the defendant, Stephen Matthews, guilty of assault incapable of appraising nature of conduct, signature by the foreperson. Did the defendant cause submission through substantial impairment? It is yes, signature by the foreperson.
Afterward, victims expressed relief and hope that the verdict would bring some measure of closure.
It was a huge relief to have the jury say they believed me and the other woman.
During sentencing, victims shared impact statements that laid bare the lasting trauma Matthews inflicted. The sentencing was severe and unequivocal, 158 years to life. The judge insisted justice must be served for each victim, underscoring the magnitude of Matthews' betrayal.
It would be improper if you did not serve a sentence for each victim individually. The total number of years are 158 years in prison. This matter is concluded.
You heard right, 158 years behind bars.
Audrey, the first woman to bravely come forward, spoke out about the toll the ordeal took on her.
There is no amount of time that takes away what happened. It does mean you won't be able to do it to anybody else.
Even as Matthew faced legal consequences, a civil lawsuit was underway. Attorney Stephen Berg pursued action against the dating app company Match Group, alleging negligence in failing to remove Matthew from their platforms despite reports of his predatory behavior.
Yeah, so we're looking at filing lawsuits against Match Group, number one, and there may be others as we determine other responsible parties. And really looking at Match Groups in their failure.
And so Match Group's is the owner, yeah, right?
Yeah. So Match Group owns, they have about 80% of the online dating market share. And they own a number of specific apps, including Hinge and Tinder. And so, one of the failures of Match Group was when Matthews was reported as a rapist, he continued to be on their website for multiple years afterwards.
Stephen Matthew wept when the verdict came down, breaking under the weight of his sentence. But how does that compare to Charles Cullen, a nurse who showed almost no reaction at all, even as he is sentenced to life in prison for killing dozens of patients?
You are hereby sentenced to New Jersey State Prison to 2 consecutive life sentences.
This is Charles Cullen, who's charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder and attempted murder in New Jersey and Pennsylvania for one of the most prolific serial killings in American history.
He may have been one of the most prolific serial killers in history, and he might still be taking lives if not for the work of his colleague, a nurse who worked with cops to bring the killer to justice.
For 16 years, Charles Cullen worked as a nurse in hospitals across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. But his job wasn't about healing, it was about killing as many patients as he could. On June 28, 2003, at Somerset Medical Center, Cullen injected Reverend Florian Gall with a fatal dose of digoxin. That's the murder he confessed to first, but investigators quickly discovered it was only the tip of a horrifying iceberg. The next moments in court would stun everyone.
You do swear the testimony you give to the court in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
The investigation revealed a pattern stretching back to the late 1980s. Hospital after hospital reported suspicious patient deaths, but none connected the dots. Cullen exploited gaps in healthcare oversight, moving from job to job and leaving devastation in his wake. In court, as the prosecution began its questioning, Cullen's calm responses sent chills through the room.
Did you inject Ms. Stoker with any medication?
He confessed to killing at least 40 patients, but investigators believe the true number may be way higher. Cullen used drugs like digoxin and paralytics, leaving his victims conscious but unable to move or speak as they died. The courtroom tension built to a breaking point as the prosecutor pressed for more details.
And what agent did you use to accomplish that intent?
Among the most powerful testimony came from Amy Loughran, Cullen's colleague and friend. She bravely worked undercover with police, wearing a wire to secure his confession.
Did you actually wear a wire to help get him to confess?
I did.
As the judge prepared to deliver the sentence, family members of the victims confronted Cullen directly.
One day, without you even knowing it, your life will end. And what legacy will you have left behind, sir? A serial murderer, serial killer. You ruined the lives of your family, your children, and many people in this courtroom. You've bloodied and stained the medical profession.
Cullen remained mostly silent throughout the proceedings, rarely showing emotion. His only statements were factual admissions of guilt, delivered with chilling detachment. The moment of reckoning finally arrived.
You are hereby sentenced to New Jersey State Prison to 2 consecutive life sentences, which, with the application of the No Early Release Act, that is NJSA 2C:43-7.2, mandates a period of 85%, or approximately 127 and a half years of parole ineligibility.
During a rare jailhouse interview, Cullen struggled to explain his actions, but even during the interview, his lack of remorse is evident even in these moments of supposed confession.
I think that I had a lot of trouble accepting that word for a long time. I accept that that's what it is.
Do you consider yourself a serial killer?
I guess it depends upon a person's definition. If it's more than one and it's a pattern, I guess, then yes.
In Cullen's case, all of his victims were patients assigned to hospital units where he worked as a nurse.
The case exposed massive failures in hospital oversight, and Cullen's crimes finally forced systemic changes in healthcare reporting and background checks. But for the families of his victims, no reforms can erase the pain.
All he cares about himself and his own children. He doesn't care what he did to our children.
Cullen now serves 11 consecutive life sentences in New Jersey State Prison. He will never taste freedom again. Cullen's chilling calm left the courtroom frozen. But what happens when a nurse refuses to even show up for her sentencing?
And you should spend the rest of your life in prison.
This is Lucy Letby, who's charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder in Chester, England. Letby was a neonatal nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital, trusted to care for the most fragile newborns. But between 2015 and 2016, a series of tragic deaths and medical emergencies raised alarms. On June 8th of 2015, a baby died just 90 minutes into Letby's shift, killed by air injected into his bloodstream. Over the next year, 7 babies died mysteriously and 6 others were seriously harmed, all under her care, using methods like air embolism and insulin poisoning. Meanwhile, tension in the hospital grew unbearable as medical staff and families struggled to understand what was happening.
We paediatricians were certainly concerned that someone, and suspicions fell on Lucy Letby, could have been harming and perhaps killing patients on the unit. If they just listened to us hospital paediatricians, I think the police would have been called in a lot earlier.
11 months passed before police were finally called in to investigate, and what had happened next would shock the community to its core. It turned out Letby had weaponized her knowledge to murder innocent babies.
Lucy Letby was entrusted to protect some of the most vulnerable babies. In her hands, innocuous substances like air, milk, or medication like insulin would become lethal. She perverted her learning and weaponized her craft to inflict harm, grief, and death.
Parents recount the trauma of witnessing their babies' sudden collapses and deaths, utterly helpless in a place meant to be safe. At Letby's home, during investigations, police uncovered several hospital records stashed away and the names of her young victims.
They found hospital records stored in shopping bags under her bed. Some included the names of babies she killed. It's thought she kept them as a kind of trophy. On a phone they seized, there were photos of the handwritten message in a card the nurse sent to the family of a baby girl she'd murdered. She signed it, "Lots of love, Lucy."
They also uncovered diary entries including a very damning confession.
And in her diary, along with dates for salsa dancing classes, there were initials of some of her victims written on the days when they died. Tucked inside was a post-it note filled with words and phrases, including, "I am evil, I did this."
Meanwhile, back in custody, the police did not make much headway with Letby.
Did you have any concerns that there was a rise in the mortality rate? Yes. Okay, so tell me about that. What concerns did you have?
I think we'd all just noticed as a team in general, the nursing staff, that this was a rise compared to previous years.
But Letby had one more surprising move because she completely refused to show up in court all through the trial. The ongoing investigation combed through thousands of neonatal admissions to identify any more victims harmed during her employment. But Letby did not appear to fit the profile of a killer.
I would describe her as a person as being beige. She was unremarkable as a nurse. She had a normal friendship group, a family. She had a normal social life, everything you would expect somebody in their 20s to do. She was operating in plain sight because she was so normal. I think it's so hard to...
In court, the entire room was heavy with sorrow and disbelief as the prosecution unfolded the evidence of the attacks against the very babies Letby had sworn to protect. Letby was found guilty, and just before sentencing, the judge took out time to address her.
But in each case, you deliberately harmed them, intending to kill them. In your evidence, you said that hurting a baby is completely against everything that being a nurse is.
Letby was sentenced to life in prison.
And you should spend the rest of your life in prison.
She was one of few women in the UK to have ever received such a sentence.
I speak on behalf of the entire prosecution team when I say that all of their babies will forever be in our hearts. I would like to thank all of the families in this case for their exceptional resilience and strength throughout this entire investigation.
Letby was not physically present in court at her sentencing, but this next doctor was, and he sat stone-faced, watching as video evidence of him poisoning IV bags played before the jury.
We were all pretty much on the same page.
Jurors speaking to WFAA Friday after convicting Ortiz on 5 counts of tampering with the consumer product.
This is Dr. Raynaldo Ortiz Jr. in court being charged for tampering with IV bags for patients in Dallas, Texas. Ortiz was an anesthesiologist at Baylor Scott & White Surgicare in North Dallas. Trusted to safeguard patient care, he instead allegedly injected harmful drugs into IV bags. Between 2022 and 2023, multiple patients received tainted IV bags, leading to severe medical emergencies. One victim, fellow anesthesiologist Melanie Casper, tragically died after using a tampered IV bag. The evidence against Ortiz includes security camera footage capturing him methodically accessing and altering IV bags in the hospital's supply cabinet on several occasions. This footage became central to the prosecution's case later in court. Before the trial began, the judge denied Ortiz bail, citing the danger he posed to the community and his means to flee, including cash and luxury assets found at arrest.
The anesthesiologist, currently represented by a public defender because he says he can't afford an attorney, was driving a Mercedes at the time. It's one of 5 luxury cars we learned he owns. His finances were presented as evidence by prosecutors that Ortiz has the means to flee, but his own counsel argued he can't get far with that money and owes millions to the IRS.
When trial began, the prosecution detailed Ortiz's methods.
Prosecutors with the Department of Justice say Dr. Ortiz injected IV bags with nerve-blocking agents and other drugs, then left them in a communal storage warmer like ticking time bombs.
Physical evidence, including punctured IV bags, was examined by the jury, reinforcing the irrefutable link between Ortiz and the medical emergencies.
This morning, the jury did ask to be able to handle some of the evidence, and one of the jurors I spoke to said being able to see the puncture wound in an IV bag, being able to feel it, there was really no doubt to them as to what exactly happened.
One teenager nearly lost his life after receiving a poisoned IV bag, saved only by the quick thinking of another doctor who suspected foul play.
And putting them in his pocket.
I thought you could just end the case then.
That was almost certainly the syringe that went in the bag that ended up in your arm.
Jack's simple procedure suddenly took a turn. His surgeon and anesthesiologist testified they frantically tried to figure out why his heart rate skyrocketed to 250 over 150, numbers his doctor testified he'd never seen before. He also had fluid in his lungs, and at one point, doctors could no longer feel his pulse.
But the whole atmosphere shifted when the damning video evidence was played in court. Surveillance revealed Ortiz acting deliberately, blending in with hospital staff yet repeatedly tampering with medical supplies, actions that put vulnerable patients at grave risk. The motive behind Ortiz's actions, as the prosecution argued, was revenge after being investigated for medical errors, an attempt to harm colleagues and patients alike. His defense disputed key points, but the overwhelming evidence and the jury's verdict sealed his fate. Jurors deliberated thoroughly, rewatching videos and examining physical evidence of tampered IV bags. Their verdict was unanimous.
We were all pretty much on the same page.
Jurors speaking to WFAA Friday after convicting Ortiz on 5 counts of tampering with the consumer product and 5 counts of adulteration of a drug.
The videos of him putting the different medications into the syringes, that's what did it for me.
Ortiz remained impassive as the guilty verdict was announced, while the courtroom gallery showed deep emotion. Despite the tragedy, Ortiz's actions exposed deep vulnerabilities in hospital safety and trust.
Caspar's case, it's ended her life. I hope he can comprehend the magnitude of what he did, and he can spend the rest of his life marinating in it.
The sentencing now looms, with Ortiz facing a potential 190 years in prison, a stark reflection of the gravity of his betrayal. The court prepares for a final reckoning.
Friday, a jury found Dr. Ortiz guilty of all 10 counts against him. He faces a potential sentence of 190 years in federal prison. A judge will determine his sentence in about 2 to 3 months.
On 20th of November 2024, Dr. Ortiz was sentenced to 190 years in prison for his crimes. Ortiz would never see the outsides of a prison wall again. But how does that compare to the case of a nurse that managed to escape a prison term after the death of her patient?
The court therefore finds that judicial diversion is appropriate and will enter an order today placing the defendant on supervised probation for an effective period of 3 years.
This is RaDonda Vaught, who's charged with criminally negligent homicide and gross neglect of an impaired adult in Nashville, Tennessee. It is December 26, 2017 in Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And in a moment that would change countless lives, Vaught accidentally administered vecuronium, a powerful paralytic rather than versed, a sedative, to 75-year-old patient Charlene Murphy. The error went unnoticed until it was too late. Murphy suffocated to death, unable to call for help.
I'm worried, scared, upset. She asked what I was worried about, and I was like, well, I'm worried because my mistake caused a patient essentially to die.
Vaught immediately realized her error. She reported it and admitted her mistake. But unfortunately, the consequences were irreversible. Charlene Murphy, a beloved mother and grandmother, was gone. The aftermath was immediate. Vanderbilt fired Vaught. The Tennessee Board of Nursing revoked her license. But on top of all that, criminal charges followed, and this sent shockwaves through the medical community.
A precedent for others.
Nikhil, good morning. We've seen fellow nurses actually show up in the courtroom in support of the defendant, RaDonda Vaught.
In court, the prosecution argued that Vaught be held responsible for her actions.
RaDonda Vaught recklessly ignored everything that she learned in school and everything that this pen represents.
And the defense, however, claimed it was a tragic mistake, compounded by systemic failures at Vanderbilt.
What happened on December 26, 2017 was a tragic mistake. It was unintentional. But one thing that's not been discussed at all and was not mentioned at all in the state's opening statement is the problems that were going on at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center at that time in 2017.
The Murphy family testified about their loss, their pain, their struggle for closure.
We just feel that my mother-in-law got lost in all this.
But Vaught's remorse was clear. She wept in court. She apologized to the family. She accepted responsibility for her actions.
People walk up to me on the street and offer hugs and condolences, and my first thought is they're hugging me, but someone else is gone because of that. She may no longer be here, but she is very much alive in my mind.
Meanwhile, nurses and other practitioners watched nationwide, terrified that honest mistakes could now be criminalized.
Hundreds of nurses outside the court celebrated when they heard she would not be going to prison.
Outside the courtroom, they held up signs reading, "We are nurses, not criminals." They warned that this precedent could make healthcare less safe, not more.
Followed the dramatic sentencing on loudspeakers.
But not everyone agreed. Some saw Vaught's mistake as gross negligence. Others pointed to systemic failures, staffing shortages, overworked nurses, flawed systems.
I'm Jen, I'm a nurse, and you may have seen RaDonda Vaught in the news. And I'm here to tell you RaDonda was always gonna happen. This trial should be just a big old convention of nurses talking about, let's talk about the culture that led to this. Because for years, nurses have been given more and more and more to do with less and less and less resources.
And then the verdict everyone was waiting for. Vaught was found guilty of criminally negligent homicide, gross neglect, and she was facing up to 8 years in prison.
The jury found her guilty of criminally negligent homicide and gross neglect of an impaired adult.
But then, something no one expected happened. The Murphy family forgave Vaught, and they asked the judge for leniency on her behalf.
Knowing my mom the way my mom was and stuff, she wouldn't want her there for no jail time. But, that's just was mom. Mom was a very forgiving person.
The judge seemed to listen as Vaught received 3 years supervised probation and no jail time at all.
The court therefore finds that judicial diversion is appropriate and will enter an order today placing the defendant on supervised probation for an effective period of 3 years.
Still, Vaught's career is over. she'll never nurse again. The Murphy family's pain remains. The healthcare system faces hard questions about safety, accountability, and forgiveness. Vaught escaped spending time in jail at the last minute, but there was no such relief for this doctor who gunned down another doctor in church.
So that your total term of incarceration will be life with parole eligibility in 50 years.
This is Scott Roeder, who's charged with first-degree murder and aggravated assault in Wichita, Kansas. The murder happened May 31st, 2009 at Reformation Lutheran Church. Scott Roeder walked into the church and shot Dr. George Tiller, a late-term abortion provider, in the head at point-blank range as Tiller served as an usher. The investigation quickly focused on Roeder when his car was spotted on surveillance footage leaving the church parking lot moments after the shooting. Police found the murder weapon, a .22 caliber pistol, in his vehicle after his arrest later that day near Kansas City. Witnesses described the murder in stark detail. Gary Hopner, an usher at the church, testified he saw Roeder walk up behind Dr. Tiller and shoot him in the head, then threaten anyone who tried to pursue him.
I got a couple steps into the grass and he turned around and said, "I've got a gun and I'll shoot you," and I just froze.
Roeder, a known anti-abortion crusader, openly confessed to the killing in court, showing no remorse. His calm demeanor in court would soon become a chilling hallmark of the case.
Had you made your mind up on the 24th when you sat in that church that you were going to kill Dr. Tiller?
Yes. The prosecution built a strong case around Roeder's own words. In one important moment, the prosecutor asked Roeder directly about his feelings on abortion. Roeder responded with a detailed explanation.
From conception forward, it is murder. It is not man's job to take life, or it is our Heavenly Father's. He is our Creator. He gives and takes life. It's never up to man to take life, only in cases of self-defense or defense of others.
But the prosecution dismantled this defense, focusing on the calculated nature of the crime.
I got up at that moment and followed him out and into the foyer area, and I did what I thought was needed to be done to protect the children. I shot him.
Roeder's own words sealed his fate. He had researched Dr. Tiller's schedule, chosen a time when he would be vulnerable, and executed his plan in a place of worship.
I proceeded out of the east door, leaving the building, running into the grassy area towards my car.
The jury heard all the evidence, including Roeder's confession, witness testimony, and the clear premeditation. The verdict was swift and unanimous.
Case number 09-CR-1462. We, the jury, find the defendant, Scott Roeder, guilty of the crime of first-degree murder.
Roeder was found guilty of first-degree murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault for threatening witnesses Gary Hopner and Keith Martin during his escape.
On count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant, Scott Roeder, guilty of the crime aggravated assault of Gary Hopner.
During the sentencing phase, things took a different turn when the defense brought in some character witnesses. One of them was Eugene Fry, a friend and fellow abortion opponent.
I always found Scott to be polite and courteous to myself and others. Even during heated discussions about the abortion procedure, Scott always had strong convictions about these issues. And yet, I never heard him argue or get loud with anyone.
But this character defense did little to sway the court. Judge Warren Wilbert delivered a sentence that ensured Roeder would never walk free again.
For reasons I've just stated, they will run, counts 1, 2, and 3 will run consecutive to each other, so that your total term of incarceration will be life with parole eligibility in 50 years plus 24 months.
Roeder would have to live to 102 years old to be eligible for parole, a sentence that made release virtually impossible.
It'll therefore be the order, judgment, and sentence of this court that you be remanded to the custody of the Secretary of Corrections to serve a term of 12 months on each count of aggravated assault. And for reasons I've just stated, they will run, counts 1, 2, and 3 will run consecutive to each other, so that your total term of incarceration will be life with parole eligibility in 50 years. As a condition of your parole, should it ever be granted and you live to the age of 102 years and beyond.
Throughout the proceedings, Roeder remained impassive, showing no remorse or reaction to the harsh sentence. Roeder was escorted from the courtroom, marking the end of his freedom and the beginning of a life sentence he will almost certainly never finish. Roeder's conviction was swift, but how does that compare to the case of a doctor who became the first surgeon in U.S. history sentenced to life?
Duntsch, when he heard that he would spend most of the remainder of his life in prison, did not show any emotion, and when the judge asked him if he wanted to appeal that verdict, he said that he did. I'm live at the courthouse. Tanya Iser, Channel 8 News.
This is Christopher Duntsch, charged with injury to an elderly individual and medical malpractice in Plano, Texas. Known as Dr. Death, he's infamous for intentionally botching surgeries that left patients maimed, paralyzed, or dead. Duntsch was a neurosurgeon in Plano, Texas, whose reckless and intentional botching of spinal surgeries left patients maimed or dead. From March 2011 through late 2012, at hospitals in Texas, Duntsch performed numerous spinal surgeries with reckless disregard, resulting in at least 32 maimed patients and 2 deaths. His victims suffered devastating injuries, paralysis, permanent nerve damage, and irreversible harm. His first widely publicized victim was Kelly Martin from Garland, Texas. After a fall left her with back pain, she placed her trust in Duntsch. Yet in March 2011, a routine surgery would turn fatal. Kelly bled to death after Duntsch sliced an artery, a catastrophic error that no one could ignore. But this was only the beginning. Duntsch continued operating, despite multiple warnings and mounting complaints. His surgical blunders piled up, operating on wrong areas, slicing ligaments around spinal cords, causing massive blood loss, leaving patients paralyzed. Yet, the H hospitals failed to act decisively. Instead of firing Duntsch, he was allowed to resign and keep practicing. Medical boards neglected to report him to national databases, letting him slip through the cracks while more patients suffered. Victims like Mary Efford were left wheelchair-bound by the encounter with the doctor.
Mary Efford calls Duntsch a butcher. She says his incompetence put her in this wheelchair.
He took away my life.
Other victims lost voices and some even their mobility. The medical board finally took notice after persistent reports and criminal charges were brought, shining a rare spotlight on extreme medical malpractice. The courtroom moment was historic. The prosecution argued what Duntsch's motivations for these murders were.
Because of greed. Because he owed people a lot of money. He wanted to live the high life, and neurosurgeons make the big bucks. Why didn't he stop? Because he has no conscience.
Among the victims was Mary Efford, left wheelchair-bound, whose testimony spoke volumes about the lifelong pain and depression caused by Duntsch's surgeries.
The patient after patient maimed or paralyzed in botched surgeries spanning 18 months. Kelly Martin and Floella Brown died.
The defense raised a controversial point, questioning why hospitals and medical boards escaped accountability for enabling Duntsch's continued practice despite warnings.
Is it right for him to go away, to be thrown away, when all of them profited? All of them have blood on their hands.
Duntsch's own father described him as devastated, stripped of family, career, and medical license, yet unable to stop as his world unraveled.
He's been devastated. He has nothing. He's lost everything. He doesn't have his family. He doesn't have his career. He doesn't have his companies. He doesn't have his medical license.
So why didn't his son stop?
And I think what happened is that as things began to fall apart, the only thing he knew was to try harder.
The courtroom was charged with tension as the jury prepared to deliver a verdict that would set a legal precedent like no other.
Well, John, not only is this a historic victory for Dallas County, this is also a historic verdict for the United States. No one can ever recall a surgeon being sentenced to prison in a botched surgery.
Duntsch was sentenced to life in prison, the first surgeon in the U.S. ever to receive such a sentence for medical malpractice. Despite the life sentence, Duntsch showed no emotion and immediately announced plans to appeal.
Duntsch, when he heard that he would spend most of the remainder of his life in prison, did not show any emotion, and when the judge asked him if he wanted to appeal that verdict, he said that he did.
The victims of his crimes, though, were relieved by the sentencing.
For Mary Efford, it was sweet justice. He was convicted in her case.
This is what I wanted. This is what I waited 4.5 years for.
Duntsch left patients paralyzed. But how does that compare to a doctor who murdered over 200 patients before finally being caught? This is Harold Frederick Shipman, who's charged with murdering over 200 patients in Hyde, Manchester. Shipman was the neighborhood doctor, the kind you'd trust with your life.
Everybody thought the world of him. He was in the community.
in order to kill them.
Elderly women living alone became his primary targets. They trusted him implicitly, making his betrayal especially devastating. His victims often appeared to have died peacefully, but something didn't add up. Their deaths came too suddenly, too conveniently, and always after Shipman's visit. Shipman's method was chillingly consistent. He always targeted elderly women living alone, administered a lethal dose of diamorphine, then falsified medical records to cover his tracks. He meticulously documented false medical histories, often suggesting heart conditions that never existed. The pattern emerged slowly. Some noticed the unusually high death rate among Shipman's patients. Others questioned why he attended so many sudden deaths. But Shipman's position of trust shielded him from suspicion. Kathleen Grundy became Shipman's undoing. Her suspicious will, leaving everything to Shipman, raised red flags. Her daughter refused to believe the signature was genuine. The investigation that followed would expose Shipman's true nature. Forensic examination of Grundy's body revealed lethal levels of diamorphine. The forged will, combined with toxicology results, provided the breakthrough investigators needed. Police began exhuming other bodies. Each revealed the same pattern: sudden death after a Shipman visit, falsified medical records, and evidence of morphine overdose. During police interrogation, Shipman displayed chilling indifference.
Boredom. Would you want to make any comment, Doctor? No comment.
West Yorkshire's investigation
Shipman's arrest sent shockwaves through Hyde. The trusted family doctor was now exposed as one of Britain's most prolific serial killers.
Hyde was such a lovely town. It was a proper old-fashioned traditional community where sons and daughters still lived on their parents' doorsteps, and they all lived near each other and they all understood each other. It was a very close community with a warm heart. So for Shipman to be able to kill so many people in such a small, safe community was doubly devastating.
Shipman faced 15 murder charges with evidence for many more. The prosecution presented a mountain of forensic evidence, forged documents, and witness testimony. The jury deliberated for only 6 days before finding him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison. But Shipman did not wait to serve his prison term. On January 13, 2004, he took his own life in prison.
Early this morning, he'd hanged himself using his bed sheets. He wasn't on suicide watch.
Yet, even after his death, residents of the community are still left devastated by the actions of the killer doctor.
Shipman's name will be forever remembered here for all the wrong reasons.
Shipman took his own life instead of living out his life behind bars. But here is a defendant whose victims cheered at his sentencing.
That's all for the record.
All right.
This is Larry Nassar, and he is charged with multiple counts of criminal sexual conduct and abuse in Lansing, Michigan.
The stories are staggering. Girls as young as kindergartners publicly sharing their memories of encounters with Dr. Larry Nassar.
I testified to let the world know that you are a repulsive liar.
Larry Nassar was a trusted doctor for USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University. From the late 1990s into the 2010s, he sexually abused hundreds of young female athletes under the guise of medical treatment. The abuse spanned decades and shattered countless lives. In 2018, after years of survivors coming forward, Nassar was formally charged and stood trial in Michigan. He pleaded guilty to 7 counts of assault, but the number of victims speaking out about his conduct towards them was over 150. Nassar's defense was cold and unyielding. Early police interviews from 2014 and 2016 reveal him justifying his actions as medical procedures.
Very in tune to the person's body, okay? And that's what makes me the doctor that I am, okay? And so that's why I'm like, how the heck did I miss any signals?
He also feigned confusion and blamed the victims for not speaking up sooner.
I don't get it. Why didn't she say something if she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form? There was no communication.
Okay.
And that's why I'm like, what? Am I blind? Am I deaf? Didn't I hear or see anything?
He leaned heavily on his professional reputation to deflect guilt.
I lecture on not only here at Michigan State to the fellows and residents and medical students, but to national organizations, international. And to be able to do this stuff for so long. If you don't have patient confidence and patient trust, you would have had my here how many times?
Right.
Okay, especially when I'm doing this on 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, okay, with their parents there. But I'm obviously doing a doggone good job explaining things, okay, because what?
His response when faced with the accusations was unsettling.
Very in tune to the person's body, okay? And that's what makes me the doctor that I am, okay? And so that's why I'm like, how the heck did I miss any symptoms?
This interview MSUPD conducted back in 2014 shows now convicted felon Larry Nassar. He was being questioned about accusations he assaulted a patient. Throughout the interview, which lasted nearly 2.5 hours, he deflected by asking why she didn't stop him.
I don't get it. Why didn't she say something if she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form? There was no communication.
Okay.
Finally brought before the courtroom on these charges, the court was a battleground of raw emotion. Survivors gave searing statements confronting Nassar with the trauma he inflicted. On January 24th, 2018, in Lansing, the court heard powerful victim impact statements before sentencing.
You were meant to get caught. You were meant to be locked up for the rest of your life.
Larry is the most dangerous type of abuser, one who is capable of manipulating his victims through coldly calculated methodologies, presenting the most wholesome and caring external persona as a deliberate means to ensure a steady stream of young children to assault.
As I look at you today, I feel nauseous. 20 minutes went by when you stopped, and I thought to myself, it's finally over. But you weren't finished yet. You assaulted me again and again.
I, too, was sexually assaulted by Larry Nassar. Multiple times, at multiple appointments. I have never wanted to hate someone in my life, but my hate towards you was uncontrollable. Larry Nassar, I hate you.
But one of the most heartbreaking moments in the case came when the father of one of the victims made an unusual request to the judge.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon. Would you do that? Yes or no?
No, sir.
Would you give me 1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how it was.
Well, I'm going to have to get something else.
He was immediately tackled by the deputies and handcuffed and subdued before being taken out of the courtroom.
Stay down. Stay down, Ryder. Stand.
Let me have that son of a...
Stand for stay down.
I want that.
Stop fighting. Behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
I want that son of a...
Put your hands behind your back.
I don't. Give me 1 minute with that pastor.
Go ahead. You're good. You're good.
1 minute.
Relax, sir. Relax. Take it easy, buddy. Just relax. Okay, now we're going to kind of let up, okay? You have to let up too, okay? All right, sit up. Get on your side. Sit up.
Where is he? 1, 2, 3, out.
In her address to the courtroom right before sentencing, Judge Rosemarie Aquilina made it clear that the doctor would not be absolved of his responsibility.
Which is why we are here for 4 days. It could be 5 or 6. Victims keep coming forward wanting to speak when they hear their sister. Victims. And I want to remind you on page 3 of the plea agreement, paragraph 4. I'm going to read it to you so you clearly understand this isn't about me at all. It's about you, the agreement, and mostly the victims so they can start healing. Paragraph 4, victim impact statements. The defendant agrees to allow all victims or their parent/representative to give victim impact statements at defendant's sentencing hearing. Included shall be the 125 victims who have reported their assaults to Michigan State University Police Department and the other acts victims who have been identified on the people's list. It says included, not limited to. Those are Crime Victims' Rights Act. that allows for the healing.
Then came the sentencing, the moment everyone had awaited.
Much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you.
The judge pronounced a sentence that would keep Nassar behind bars for life.
Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant.
The courtroom erupted in relief and applause as survivors and supporters embraced.